Imagine a battlefield where chaos reigns, knights in gleaming armor charge into battle, and the air is thick with the clash of steel and the cries of the wounded. Now imagine fighting in those times. No modern weapons, no GPS, and definitely no instant coffee to keep you going. The medieval and early modern periods were a time when wars weren't just fought with weapons but with sheer grit and willpower. Have you ever wondered what it truly meant to survive in those unforgiving eras? These wars shaped the very fabric of our world today, from the rise and fall of empires to the shifting borders of nations. Yet behind the romanticized tales of bravery lies a stark reality: wars that changed lives forever, often in the most brutal ways. Think about the 100 Years' War, a conflict so vast it sounds like a Netflix series gone too far. But this was no scripted drama, it was real life. Generations lived and died within its span, and the battles weren't just fought on fields, they were fought in hearts and minds. France and England clashed endlessly, each claiming divine favor, as ordinary people paid the ultimate price. And let's not forget Joan of Arc, a teenage girl who defied expectations and led armies, only to face betrayal and martyrdom. Her story is both heartbreaking and inspiring, a reminder that one person can ignite change even in the darkest of times. But not all wars of this period were about kings and crowns. The Crusades were a series of wars driven by faith, or at least that's what they were on the surface. Imagine knights trekking thousands of miles, not just to fight but to conquer in the name of religion. What do you think drove them? Faith, ambition, or perhaps a mix of both? Whatever the reason, these wars left an indelible mark on history, creating cultural exchanges and tensions that echo even today. And then came the early modern era, where gunpowder revolutionized warfare. Gone were the days of charging knights and trebuchets. In came muskets and cannons. The 30 Years' War epitomized this transformation, a war so devastating that it wiped out entire populations in Europe. If you thought medieval wars were grim, this was a whole new level. Yet, it also laid the groundwork for modern diplomacy. Ever heard of the Peace of Westphalia? That treaty essentially redrew the map of Europe and birthed the concept of nation-states. But wait, who were the real heroes of these wars? It's easy to focus on kings, generals, and knights, but what about the foot soldiers, the civilians caught in the crossfire, and the women who held societies together while men fought? Their stories often go untold, yet they were the backbone of these eras. How did they endure such hardship? How did they find hope amidst the chaos? Now, let's take a moment to reflect. Imagine living in a world where your survival depended not on your skills or strength alone, but on the whims of a ruler or the outcome of a single battle. It's both terrifying and fascinating, isn't it? Yet, these were the circumstances under which civilizations were forged, boundaries were drawn, and legacies were created. As we delve into the stories of medieval and early modern wars, one question lingers: how did humanity persist? Through every siege, every betrayal, every fleeting moment of victory, people found ways to rebuild, to hope, and to push forward. What can we learn from their resilience? And just when you think you've heard it all, there's always another twist, a forgotten battle, an unsung hero, a decision that altered the course of history. So stay tuned, because the journey through these tumultuous times is far from over. And here's where it gets even more intriguing: many of the strategies and tactics developed in these wars are still studied today. Think about how medieval sieges inspired modern urban warfare tactics. Those towering castle walls may have been replaced by skyscrapers, but the principles of defense and offense remain surprisingly similar. Did you know that the longbow, yes, a simple wooden bow, once decided the fate of nations? At the Battle of Agincourt, the English longbowmen turned the tide against a much larger French force. It was a perfect example of how ingenuity and preparation could triumph over sheer numbers. Imagine standing in a muddy field, arrows raining down like a deadly storm, knowing that your every move could mean life or death. But let's not romanticize it too much. War in these eras was brutal beyond imagination. The weapons were crude, the injuries horrific, and the concept of mercy? Often non-existent. Yet, these conflicts also gave rise to some of the most enduring symbols of honor and chivalry. The code of the knight, loyalty, bravery, and protection of the weak, sounds noble, doesn't it? But how often was it upheld? Perhaps more often in legends than in reality. And speaking of reality, let's address something that might make you chuckle amidst the grimness. Did you know some medieval armies were so poorly equipped that soldiers would literally fight in their underwear? Imagine stepping onto a battlefield, not fully armored but barely clothed, all because your lord couldn't afford to outfit his troops. It's a reminder that history, for all its grandeur, often had its absurd moments. As the early modern era unfolded, the absurdity didn't vanish, but the stakes grew even higher. Empires expanded their ambitions, sailing across oceans to claim territories and resources. These wars weren't just about land anymore, they were about shaping a global order. The Spanish Armada, for instance, was a fleet so massive it seemed unstoppable, until it wasn't. Nature itself intervened, with storms wreaking havoc and ensuring a historic English victory. It's a classic example of how even the grandest plans can falter against forces beyond human control. But here's the kicker: despite all the advances in strategy, technology, and governance, one thing remained constant: war is a tragedy. The cost of these conflicts wasn't just measured in lives lost or kingdoms toppled, but in the cultural and social scars they left behind. Families torn apart, communities destroyed, and generations haunted by memories of battle. And yet, from this chaos emerged resilience. Think of the great cathedrals and universities built during these times, symbols of hope and progress amidst the rubble of war. People didn't just endure, they innovated. The Renaissance blossomed in the wake of medieval wars, a testament to humanity's ability to rise again and again. So, as you reflect on these stories, ask yourself, what would you have done if you lived in those times? Would you have picked up a sword, rallied your neighbors, or sought refuge in faith? These questions aren't just hypothetical, they're a window into understanding who we are as people. Because ultimately, the story of medieval and early modern wars isn't just about the battles fought or the empires built. It's about us, the choices we make, the resilience we show, and the lessons we carry forward. And as history has shown time and again, even in the darkest of times, there's always a glimmer of hope waiting to be found. But hold on, we're not done just yet. There's one story, one battle, one unsung hero we've yet to uncover. Stay tuned, because the most surprising twist is still to come.